Well, hello. This is a recording of our networking class for Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019. And I'm actually summarizing the class after our live class. We started it with a round robin where I asked a bunch of questions, including what type of person you want to be connected with in your network, what kinds of people might introduce you to the types of people that you need to know, where might you find people online, and what's the thing that seems most daunting about networking or meeting these people. And so those questions led to some topics. And if I boil the topics down into three, one is kind of how do you find the types of people you want to talk to? And I wrote here specific question networking because that's a technique that I teach that helps you find people, and I thought it would be good to go over it. And the second issue was how do you navigate that line between building relationships for relationships' sake so that you're not just going through trying to meet people and they feel like you're just trying to get something from them, but then actually getting what you need met and being efficient in your networking. So kind of how do you navigate that line, or one person mentioned how do you do the dance of networking. And then another person mentioned the difficulty with ongoing follow-up. So you might meet somebody once, have a couple good conversations, but then how do you sort of develop that relationship over time? So I'm going to try to be brief about the specific question networking technique. It's actually a great technique. I developed it and I've taught several classes just on it. It's based on the theory of 6 degrees of separation. Some of you may have heard of this, kind of the fun thing where it's called the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation, so you can connect him to any other actor based on movies that they've been in together. So the idea is that the theory of 6 degrees of separation is actually based on research, and they've done lots of different research on this. And ultimately, what matters to us is that they've discovered that any one person could be connected to any other person in the world in an average of 6 steps, and a step being you having a friend and that friend having a friend. So, being introduced to people. So, for example, you could take any celebrity, any type of person that you'd want to meet, let's say a researcher on lactation, and you could get connected to that person in usually less than 6 steps through your network, and it really doesn't matter who the people in your network are. So we'll talk about that briefly, and then the specific question networking technique is also based on how you ask questions of people and some relationship ground rules that help you get introductions. So you ask questions to get people to think of people they know who might be good for you to be introduced to, but then you have to get them to want to make the introduction. And a lot of people are daunted by that part of it as well. So let me go into this technique a little bit and try to be brief. I kind of think of it as a human Google search. When it comes to finding the right people, you really have to accept the fact that everybody knows approximately 250 people. And when I teach classes, I have the class play a game. I have them think of any type of bizarre person that they could come up with. And it can be a specific person like Aretha Franklin, or it could be a type of person like someone who uses math and music in their work. And the idea is that you ask the question, do you know someone who? And the answer is yes or no. But in response to that question, people immediately scan their brain. So if I say, do you know someone who breeds owls? Then immediately you're going to scan your brain, and you're probably doing it right now as you listen to this to think, well, is there anybody I know who breeds owls? And honestly, if there's someone that you know who breeds owls, that person's name is going to pop up right away. So that's what's powerful about how you ask these questions. Now, if the answer is no, then your follow-up question is, do you know someone who might know someone who breeds owls, or who might know Aretha Franklin, or who might know someone who uses math and music in their job? So you get very specific about your criteria, and you just ask those two questions. Do you know someone who fits the criteria? And if the answer is yes, you ask for the introduction. If the answer is no, you ask if they might know someone who might know somebody. And then you ask for that introduction. Now, I think the thing that people are worried about is, well, yeah, but it's really uncomfortable to ask for the introduction. And it's actually uncomfortable to ask for the introduction if you don't follow certain ground rules, because there are really two ground rules to follow. I'm going to protect the people in my network from two things. People asking them to do awkward and uncomfortable things, that's number one, and people taking too much of their time, that's number two. So if you can make sure that what you're going to ask the target person is not going to take up too much of their time and not going to be awkward or uncomfortable for them. So it's going to be awkward or uncomfortable for someone you don't know to deliver your resume to somebody. You can't ask somebody that's a complete stranger to promote you because they don't know you, and that would be awkward and uncomfortable. But what you can do is, let's say that you want to get a job at Google, and you want to learn more about Google. So if I have a friend at Google, what I might do is be willing to connect them to you if you tell me I have 3 questions I want to ask them. One is, what is it like to work there? 2 is, do they ever use these particular types of people that they know? And 3 is, do they know anybody else at Google who they think would be willing to talk to me? Those are the 3 questions I want to ask. I can ask them either email or on the phone. Would you be willing to make the introduction? And if that person trusts that you're going to stick to the 3 questions that you said, that you're going to stick and honor and respect the time, then they'll be more than happy usually to make the introduction. So it's really following the relationship guidelines and following the specific questioning guidelines that it can really help you take off and find anybody that you want and, you know, get you talking to people. And in his book, The 4-Hour Work Week, Tim Ferriss did this to help him figure out how to run a business in 4 hours a week. I mean, he just would call people that were famous and ask them how they did it. And he had a lot of courage, but even without a lot of courage, you can make this technique work for you. So that's all I'm going to say about it now, but we'll continue to talk about it on upcoming classes. The other thing that we talked about was the dance of networking, and I think we kind of already touched on it. You know, the reason that we network is usually because we need something from our network. So if we're running a business, we need customers. If we're in job transition, we need people to refer us to job leads or interviews, that sort of thing. And so if we haven't networked much and now suddenly we need something, it can feel really awkward. So, you know, the goal is to be very proactive in building up your network, but even if you haven't been proactive, you can start networking and be focused about it while also not being completely obnoxious. And the way you do that is you make sure that you're also giving in the networking situation, or at the very least, you're getting to know people and you're making it pretty clear as you get to know them that you're interested in who they are as people, not only what they can do for you. So that is a dance, and we talked about a lot of ways to navigate that dance on the phone, but what we also did is talk about this book. I brought it up because Patty had referred it to me and I started reading it, and he talked his book, Adam Grant, Give and Take. He did some research on who were the most successful people and how they networked. And he called some people givers and some people takers. And he was trying to see who was most successful. And what he found was that the people who were just takers were actually not very successful, but also the people who were only givers were not very successful either. And I can tell you that I've been in networking meetings where I've had people that I've liked go to tons of networking meetings and not make much progress because they're busy making friends with everybody, but still they're not actually getting any referrals, and so they're wasting a lot of their networking time. And Adam Grant kind of just gave some guidelines, not directly related to networking, but related to finding this optimal place between giving, but sort of giving in a way where you're also getting your own needs met. So I thought this would be an interesting book to revisit, and I only started reading it, and then it was due at the library, so I am going to actually buy the book and reread it. And I recommend it to you as well if you're interested in kind of figuring out what that optimal place is for you. Now, the other thing that we talked about is ongoing follow-up. So once you have maybe some initial contact with somebody, usually you're not in a close relationship with them after a couple of conversations. So how do you keep developing that relationship long term? You need a reason to keep in touch with people. So what we did on the call is we brainstormed on strategies, and people shared the strategies that had worked for them. So some people shared that they find out something personal about the person so that they can follow up and had something to ask them about the next time they call. Some people used gratitude, so they would circle back and thank the person that they had talked to and kind of get back to them on how they did. So, for example, if I called you at Google and asked you and you introduced me to someone, then I would circle back and say, thank you, I had a great conversation with Mary. I really appreciate that you made this connection and I learned X, Y, and Z. You could create ongoing loops with people. So one person on the call mentioned that she has people that she has quarterly meetings with, and a quarterly lunch is not too taxing on that person, and she has several mentors that she has that quarterly lunch arrangement, and that kind of keeps her constantly in and guided, but without putting too much on any one person. And for each one of us, we need to create a strategy that works for us. And I shared with the group my strategy for networking, which some of you may have actually experienced. And that is I do these best practices forums once a month. And I do them on different topics, but they're free. And what they do is they give me an opportunity to talk about things that I'm really interested in and sort of be on stage as a speaker. But what it also does is it gives me an opportunity to offer something valuable to people in my network. So it's sort of a give that's also a take. The take is that I get some exposure, and the take is also that I have a good excuse to reach out to my network and check in with them. And I'm not just calling them to say, hey, what's up, and waste time, but instead I'm able to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm giving this free event this next month, and I think you might be interested in the topic, so if you have the time, I'd love to have you join us. And that's a gift, because if they are interested in the topic, they're going to get a lot out of the session, and I make sure that they do get a lot out of the session. But also that keeps our relationship building, and it makes it easy to stay in touch and keep that relationship growing, and I'm going to be present in their mind. So if they think about somebody who needs leadership coaching or who wants leadership coaching, I might be one of the first people that they think about. So that's my strategy, and it has worked really, really well for me over the past few years. What we did at the end of this call, which we don't do at the end of all calls, is we had everybody come up with goals. And I took the names of the people who were on the call out, but here are some examples of goals that were set for next month. Add content to my online presence, contact 5 people and network with them, find 3 people to talk to and set up an appointment with one of them, have 5 conversations. You can see that you can create some very specific goals related to networking and commit in this class, and if you want, we can follow up on them for you. Now, you don't have to have us hold you accountable to what you promise, but because networking is a proactive activity and it's not a reactive activity, sometimes it takes that extra motivation that comes with accountability, so we're happy to hold anybody accountable or at least ask them about how it went every month. ask the people on the call how their last month went, any goals, anything that they want to report to the group on. So we're going to use this class as kind of an ongoing, I guess, accountability to kind of keep people out there and networking and being effective in their networking and growing, because networking is so, so important to your career, yet it's the last thing on our list of urgent things that need to be done every day. So that was an overview of the class. I thought it was pretty powerful. I thought we went over some great things, and I would encourage you to participate live next time if you didn't get a chance to this time. It was a great discussion that we had. Looking forward to hearing you all next time. Bye-bye.